3, 2, 1.
Welcome into the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup. Randy Lee alongside Scott Hardy this evening. 256-234-6221 is our phone number. Love to hear from you out there. Also 800-782-0108. And Scott, we got a lot on tap tonight. Not any teams out there, so we'll have a little fun talking to you. But we're at JR Sports Bar and Grill as we are each and every Tuesday night from 6 to 7. Love for you to come out, have a great dinner. Bring your kids out in uniform. They'll eat off the kids' menu for $3.99. That can be practice uniform, game uniform. And if you're looking for delivery, 256-329-2328. Glad to have you up here, Scott.
Yeah, and it's a little slower show than what we usually have. Usually we would have an abundance of kids up here in teams, but a little off week here, and hopefully we'll get back on track with that next week. I know Justin is putting together some great things, but as you said, here in JR Sports Bar and Grill, 256-329-2328 is the number to dial in for them, and they can take care of your delivery needs. We can come up here and get some of the great food.
Yeah, we've had some interesting calls that we'll try to run into as we swing over from Sports Call this afternoon that we do from 4 to 6 right here at JR Sports Bar and Grill, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So if you're looking to come out and have a good afternoon and got some early bird specials that we throw out there, happy hour specials at JR is a good place to come out and do that, Scott. And some of the topics that were brought up is the Tim Tebow rule. And I thought that that's of interest here in not only the Lake Martin community, but high school sports in general in the state and throughout the country. And can you just give us a brief background? I tried to give what I know off the top of my head about the Tim Tebow rule, but just a brief eligibility and a summary of what that means.
Well, it was brought to the House in 2006, actually. So this is something they've been trying to push for quite some time. But as the name says, it's based around Tim Tebow, who played in Nice, Florida, played for Nice High School, but as everyone knows, was a homeschooler. And since this law has been in effect since the early or mid-1990s. But basically what it allows you to do now, if you're a homeschooled student, and you meet the residency requirements as well as academic requirements that are needed for the same student athlete in a public school system, you're allowed to play on the team. So that does include band and sports, and so you are allowed to do other homeschools do things like choir and arts and activities like that. But this is the first time in the state of Alabama you've been allowed to actually do something like this from an athletic standpoint. But again, they're only expecting 3 to 5% nationally as this people actually take effect of this rule. So everybody is making a big deal about it, but in reality, Alabama has 25,000 students who are homeschooled. So that would only equate to 750 to 1,200 students that would be actually doing something along the lines that were taking advantage of the rule. So I don't know how big a deal that actually really is.
Well, but the point is that once you open up Pandora's box, where does that go? Because how many kids are making a decision that they go to a public, maybe a private school, not homeschooled? And there's nothing wrong with homeschooling at all. But I guess the biggest gripe out there is you're taking public money and you're throwing it towards a homeschool kid because clearly they're not considered on the numbers, are they? Are they considered towards your eligibility numbers or your enrollment numbers? Because they're not enrolled in the school. So if you ended up with you're a small school that had a bunch of homeschool guys and it kept you from going to a 1A, 3A, and kept your numbers from extending to that, then that's got to be part of the gripe out there, I would think, Scott.
Well, from my understanding, it doesn't appear that they count toward the actual total. They were saying that homeschool students actually save the state of Alabama $157.5 million a year by not getting public funds. So on that side, yeah. I think they're actually okay on that end. But I don't know that the way that it's looking at, and this actually going back to the vote, there was 52-43. So again, this has been something that's been going on for a long time. But again, it allows homeschool students to play on sports teams at the public school level that they are zoned for, but it doesn't guarantee a spot on the roster, but rather gives the opportunity or the chance to meet, as long as they meet academic requirements and residency requirements, and they're allowed to try out for the team. So if you're thinking about it, how many kids actually are going to take advantage of that actually have that much? If you're a star player, I mean, you really don't see a lot of guys that are average players that would take advantage of this, because most times they are upper echelon guys. So I don't know. In Birmingham, in the Montgomery area, Mobile, Huntsville, in your major metropolitan areas, and I could see this becoming a problem on that side. But in reality, I don't know how this really affects it, because I don't think you're just going to see everybody just dropping out of school or saying they're going to homeschool just so they'll be able to play at a better football school.
Well, and that brings up a whole other can of worms to me and look, I plead ignorance, so I don't know the exacts, but when you're homeschooled and you're looking to become eligible for a public school, do you have to take a test that shows that you're up to date with your school rank? Is that something that you have to do, and you have to pass a test to prove that you're a junior in high school, so you're junior age-wise and eligibility-wise based off of your knowledge base?
That actually is something that came up in a lot of the research with it. And from my understanding, everything that a private school student would have to do from a residency, academic, or being up to date on your academics, even from a discipline standpoint, because they said, how do you discipline? If they do something, how would you discipline a homeschool player? They said, well, usually it would go from the coach. In most situations, it would be coach. Then they would let the parent know. So more than likely, this actually benefits them. It makes it a little easier for them to be able to get to the parent or make a disciplinary decision.
Here's my question, though. You got a 16-year-old kid that drops out of high school, but he still wants to play ball. And he's just saying, I'm homeschooled. I'm homeschooled now, and somebody signs off on it. Is he still eligible, or does he have to take some type of test to prove that he's still eligible?
He has to take a test because, and I know we're up against the break, but and we'll get into it, but there's two ways that you qualify in the state of Alabama as being a homeschool student. There's a tutorial law, which is either your parent is or guardian is a teacher and a certified teacher, and then they have to submit grade sheets to the school.
Okay.
And the other side would be the church school cover, which is where a church or a priest or a minister or a preacher would be the person that would be administering your school service. And then at that point, they would have to release it too.
256-234-6221. This is a sticky wicket here. And, we had it brought up on Sports Call. Thought it would be of interest on this program. As
ASSA adamantly against it too. So that's a big part of it too. That's the biggest fight has been from the ASSA.
Interesting. 256-234-6221. Up against another break here on the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup. Welcome back into the Sports Blitz, Lake Martin Sports Roundup. Randy Lee alongside Scott Hardy, 256-234-6221. We're in beautiful downtown Alexander City at JR Sports Bar and Grill, as we are each and every Tuesday night from 6 to 7. Make sure to bring your kids out in uniform. They'll lead off the kids menu for $3.99, as well as calling in for delivery or pickup at 256-329-2328. Scott, this is an interesting topic, so we're going to stay there with it. It's been brought up to me a number of times. I've never really read into it to find out the specifics on it, and it is the Tim Tebow rule, and it was passed correctly, or
Yes.
is it fully
May the
passed
7th,
now?
it's fully passed.
So it is into effect, which means, again, if you're just now tuning in, means what, Scott?
It means that a homeschooled student can now participate in sports and band only if they meet the residency and academic requirements that are placed on a public school student. They're not guaranteed a spot in any of these activities, yet they're allowed the opportunity to rather try out for it than actually be guaranteed a spot.
Or a Christian school environment kid can do the same.
Yeah, so that's how it's taken into effect. You have the tutorial law, which is a private tutor or parent that has access or that has graduated with a teaching certificate or something along those lines, and then they can serve as an educator for you, and then they have to release the grades to the school. And then you have the church school cover law, which means that covering under the supervision of the church school administrator, which is usually the pastor at the church. So then they are then required to provide proper documentation to let the school know, or whoever that is residing over that athlete, that they are eligible to play.
256-234-6221, your thoughts on this law being passed? Do you see it being a big topic of discussion? Do you see it changing the decision-making process for families out there? We'd love to hear from you. It's a topic that, look, I'm a big public school advocate. I think that, and especially here in Tallapoosa County and Benjamin Russell High School, I think we've got one of the top public schools in the state, and I'd like to see it kept that way. And it takes many out there. Look, if you choose to homeschool your kid, there are tremendous kids that are homeschooled every year. I am not fighting that battle. That is your decision as a parent. I'm not saying that it's not. If you decide to send your kid to a private school or a Christian school, absolutely, there's wonderful kids that come out of that environment each and every year. That's good. But to decide that the public school route is not for you, and to do homeschooling or to do the private school route, and then think that athletics are good enough for you, that they just deserve the opportunity there, that's a weird situation to me, Scott. And it's not because you were kicked out of school or you weren't allowed in. You were allowed in the public system. You chose not to come to the public system. So why is it the public system's rule to give you the opportunity to play a sport that's not offered at the school, or the decision that you made? You made the decision not to go to that school.
And we were talking about this off the air, and I didn't see that point until you brought it up. And now looking at it, I do understand what you're saying, but what some people are going to say to that is, if that person was involved, if they were enrolled in school, then they would be taking that person's spot anyway. So if you're a better athlete than somebody, you would earn the spot anyway. So that is the alternative.
Yeah, but they're not. You can't have your cake and eat it too, Scott. I mean, I don't get it. Let's say there's X private school in one of the communities we cover out there, and you make a decision that you want your kid to go to that Christian private school. Great. I mean, again, there's great kids that come out of that environment every year, but that kid has the opportunity to move over, and my kid's in the public system, and he's going to take one of his spots. Or he's going to take a spot of some other parent or some other kid that is afforded that opportunity and goes to that school and is a member of that school and there for 8 hours a day and does all the things that are expected there. And something's missing to me on this, and I'm clearly not for it. I'll throw that out there. I mean, I don't think that, but I'm not against the others if you make that decision. But I just don't like the idea that you try to structure the laws around. Let's don't kid ourselves. This is for privileged for the most part. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, I would anticipate that most of your people that are homeschooled are from affluent family. So I would anticipate that's the case.
Okay, so you're just giving privilege an opportunity. You're just giving them more of an opportunity than those that stuck with the public school system, and their only decision they want to go to that is for extracurricular activities and sports. I mean, and the rest of it's not good enough.
Well, it's similar to the, and I can't think of the bill now and that. I'm sorry about that, but it's basically something similar to this, where if your school isn't meeting, average yearly progress, then you can go ahead and change.
Well, I
to
think
whatever
Nice
school.
was meeting average yearly progress.
But I'm saying this is another, I think, a sidestep with that. It stemmed from that too, because that's another way to, I guess, ensure that you. I don't know, Randy, because the main thing I have with it is, as you are, I'm a big proponent of the public school system. My mom and everybody on my mom's side is an educator to some extent. So I'm a product of the public school system. So I don't want anybody taking this the wrong way. But if somebody wants to go to another school, then that's fine. But I don't know why they shouldn't be allowed the opportunity to play there.
I cheer them on. They made that decision. They decided to go to another school that maybe doesn't offer as many extracurricular activities that the public system allows by public funds. They made that decision.
Okay.
So stick with it. I mean, don't have you can't have your cake and eat it too. Look, I'm sure that I'm upsetting a few of you riding around out there, and if you've got an opinion, I'd love to hear from you, but I'm sure there's a lot of you that agree with me as well, that it just seems like you're setting up a law just to cater to certain privileged few, in my opinion.
My mom never texted me during the show, but she said Randy is correct. So there you go. So you got a new fan there. So, 256-234-6221.
If you have any thoughts on this, look, I've been passionate about the private school and public school. They're playing in the same class. The multiplier that they use for that decision to be made. Go watch Madison Academy play. They won every state championship, football, basketball, and baseball this year. Go watch them play 3A, and they're sitting up there by Huntsville, and come up with a way that you think that one's fair. I apologize, and look, that's against what the decisions that have been made as well. But this is that's not a level playing field by no stretch of the imagination. And until either that multiplier is increased in this state like it has been in others, I'm not going to agree that it's fair. I don't think that it is. You can ride and you can watch and you can look. It's not fair that one community has the opportunity to go out there and recruit whoever they want, whenever they want. They're not going to have a down year where they just don't happen to have a quarterback in the community, and I'll go get you one. Drive up to Huntsville, find you one when they're in 5th or 6th grade. I mean, you can point out a good athlete at that time, and that's what happens. They go out, they offer the scholarship, they bring them in, and they compete in the same level. So
and that's great timing in what you said, too, because the law starts in the 7th grade. So that's exactly when it would start.
256-234-6221. Love to hear if you've got some thoughts on either of these topics. Call in. More of the Sports Blitz, Lake Martin Sports Roundup right after this.
I'm going to replay the bumper music.
My bad, man. We got a lot going on.
Understood. You got a caller. Her name's Kim. All right, going on in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup. You know you got a good topic when you really can't get off of it during the break, and you're interested in it. And we got our buddy Chase Burton up here that's working at JR's, a great football player and great soccer player here at Benjamin Russell. And we're having a little discussion with him, and clearly Chase is competitive. He's like, somebody wants to come in and take my spot. He's got to earn it. And we had a couple of other thoughts that we'll go to here shortly, but I want to go to the phone lines quick. Kim, you're on Sports Blitz. Kim, you there with us? Hopefully we can get those phone calls through, 256-234-6221, and back there producing. Let me know if you got her back on air. You think you can get her back on, but it's got the let me throw another one out there. I'm just going to throw darts at this idea. Let's say we're sitting in X community and you're without a running back. And you need a running back, and you've known for a couple of years that once that senior goes, we need to have us a running back in place. And you've got this Christian school environment over here that offers scholarships to kids.
Try again when you can.
And I'll try to go back to that. And let me keep me on task with that before I get my mind off of it. Back to the phone lines. Kim, you're on Sports Blitz.
Yes, I can barely hear you. I have to disagree. I've got a grandson that is starting homeschooling this year. And he's not in the LMG city school system, but was in a local school system here.
Mm-hmm.
And that child was not being taught correctly. He had teachers that would give him no help when he raised his hand and asked for it. And the teacher told my daughter, if he can't understand when I write it on the board, oh well. So it's not always their choice when they're not being taught and they don't get it, and that's in 40 years. If he gets behind now, he's going to be behind the rest of the time. And I don't think it's fair if he can homeschool and keep his grades up that he has to do without the sports part of it. Because it's like the guy said a while ago, we're saving the school system thousands of dollars by homeschooling him. So to let him play sports, if he's eligible and wants to, I think it's not right. Because he's already losing a lot.
It's a tough subject.
And that's just...
Yeah, and I appreciate you calling in, Kim, and it brings up some good reasons that you hear out there. And, hopefully
all the kids are not, top echelon kids. I mean, they're not. I am on a retirement thing. I don't make enough money for me, but I'm doing everything I can do for him. And so is my daughter, who is on a limited fixed income too.
Kim, let me
make very much money.
Yeah, let me ask.
She's a single mom.
Are there tutors that will be teaching your homeschool kid, or is it a mom that will be doing that? Is it a parent at home?
Strictly his mom.
Okay. So yeah, I can
strictly his mother, but the school system or the homeschooling that he's in, he does have to go to another school, part of that, 2 days a week, where he has a certified teacher that's going to be there to work with him if he has any problems. So, and I'm not saying it was cheap for us because it wasn't. I got him a computer for Christmas, had to buy another one for him to start school because of a certain ROM or something in the computer. So, it wasn't something that we wanted to do. We were just left no choice with this school system. It's a beautiful school, their new school, all the way up. But the teaching part of it, it's just not been there for him. It was in elementary, but since he went into junior high, it's not been. Now, if he does good for a couple of years, his mother did promise him that she would push him back in public school when he got into high school and try if he wanted to. So, I mean, we're doing everything we can do for the child.
Kim, we appreciate
And
your
that's
phone
who
call.
I don't think should have to suffer.
We appreciate your phone call this afternoon.
Thank you.
Good points. And look, I want to make sure that I don't sound like I'm off. I'm all for those parents that make the decision that they think's best for their kid. The only thing that, I question and I'm against is you made that decision, which is good, and hopefully the kid's successful and gets the education that he needs, whether that mean that you take your kids out of the public system and send them to private, you take your kids out of the public system and send them to a school that I work with closely in Lyman Ward Military Academy. That's a wonderful environment, great school, been around since 1898. You send them to somewhere like that to get them some military structure or some type of structure you think is going to help, or you homeschool them. I'm for whatever decision you make. The thing that I question is you made that decision to pull them into something else, yet you want them to still be part of the public system in some form or fashion, whether it be an extracurricular activity or an athletic event. That's where I've got an issue with it.
Yeah, excuse me. And again, this is we talk about it a lot of times.
The thing about it is, though, if they're in the public system and they're not thriving there or they're not being taught what they need to learn, then as a parent, you don't have no choice but to get them somewhere where they have that opportunity. Now, to have to do that and to take the sports away from them, I just don't think it's right. I don't.
Well, that's a great point, Kim.
And I don't even know if he wants to try out. I'm just saying, from my point of view, I feel like he should have that opportunity.
Well, we appreciate it, Kim. We appreciate the phone call. We're up against another break, 256-234-6221. We come back, we'll continue down this topic. We'll move in. We'll talk a little bit about Kendall Graveman, who has really stepped up, had two very good outings in his return back up from AAA, back to the Oakland Athletics. Some other kids that are moving on and doing great things out there. I want to talk about UAB and how proud we are of a recent graduate. I could say a recent, 3 or 4 years ago, Cameron Blankenship, and how well-spoken he has been through all of this UAB debacle is the only way I can put a term on it out there. But if you've pulled up any articles here since this all started, including yesterday on AL.com, they interviewed Cameron, and he handles himself so professionally. He's going to be a very successful man one day. He's already an impressive man, but he's moved on to South Alabama, and he's taken advantage of the opportunity that they gave him to finish out his schooling there, and no one can blame him for that. But it's a sad situation for so many kids at UAB. We'll talk a little bit about that. More of the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup right after this.
We've served this community for many years.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup. I want to thank all of you out there for tuning in. 256-234-6221. I'm Randy Lee alongside Scott Hardy. We're at JR Sports Bar and Grill as we are each and every Tuesday night from 6 to 7. Make sure to bring your kids out in uniform. They'll eat off the kids menu for $3.99. Well, is coming on out here and calling in for a pickup or delivery at 256-329-2328. Great time as we are sitting here watching MLB on – what is this?
MLB.TV.
MLB.TV. I need to start getting on this, and Kendall Graveman off to a great start right now. And Kendall's had 2 more starts after he dropped down to Nashville and had a 1.85 ERA in 4 starts at Nashville in AAA. Moving back up 2 starts ago, a couple of weeks back. He has a shutout in his first start. Pitches well against the Yankees, which is, to see him strike out Alex Rodriguez.
It was amazing.
It is. It's you just keep saying these things and scratching your head, but so proud for Kendall and what he's been able to do as he's currently pitching for Oakland as they're taking on a power in Major League Baseball the last decade, and that's Detroit.
Yeah, and again, it's been so enjoyable to watch him get back in his groove. And again, it looks like he's getting ready to get out of the second inning here, and they do. They had 3 up, 3 down for him so far as they take on the Tigers. But you could tell in spring training there were a lot of people that were watching. They were saying he was already in midseason form, essentially. And so to see him struggle like he did early on was a little disheartening, but anybody in that position would be nervous. And he was over pitching a little bit, and his stint down in Nashville for AAA purposes, I think, did wonders for him. He got everything back under control, and he's a little more comfortable. You could tell that his confidence level is just so much more visible than it was before getting sent down. And I think he has the opportunity, especially now with the injury that they have in the rotation. He'll be up there for the next, 3 to 4 weeks for sure. And if he does what he's supposed to do, he'll be able to keep that spot on out, which is why they wanted him in the rotation to begin with. And even if he doesn't win out in the rotation going forward, he'll be somebody that they use in the bullpen to keep him around and make sure he gets his innings.
I tell you, just a brilliant young man, and his pitching, the ball moves so much. God, you can watch, and he's not overpowering, but it's moving all over the map. He's Greg Maddux-esque, and if you can be, someone can say you resemble someone like that, then you're doing some great things. One thing about Kendall, he's throwing the ball over the plate. He's had an unusual amount of walks, I would say, in the first part of the season, clearly trying to spot pitch. When you leave one up in the majors, they make you pay for it. We saw it a couple of times in his opening day or his opening start there for Oakland this year. But since then, he's been competitive in each of the games that we've seen. He was great in AAA and pitching extremely well right now back up at Oakland as they are tied up at 0, no hits going through the first 2 innings there as Oakland takes on the Detroit Tigers. 256-234-6221 is our phone number. Love to hear from you out there. We've been talking about this Tim Tebow rule and getting some interesting talk out there, not only from phone calls coming in, social media, but as well as people here in JR Sports Bar and Grill that have an opinion on the matter. I brought up to you, and I'm just throwing darts at this, but let's just say that there's a community out there that's needing a running back, and they know it, that this class and a couple of classes there, they're missing that running back. They got all the other pieces missing that running back. And there's a Christian school or another environment out there that offers scholarships. And those scholarships, they get in cahoots with a public school system, and those scholarships are offered up to this kid to bring him there so he can play ball at that public school system of his choosing. And look, you would say, Randy, that's far-fetched. You aren't – you need to become involved in high school sports over the years and see how corrupt some things can be played out there as far as pulling kids in from different school districts.
Terry, who's wanting to talk about the homeschool thing.
Just your thoughts on that, because I see that being an X factor that would worry me if I were over the athletic department here in the state, because it's hard to find a right and wrong there if you're opening up that loophole.
And I agree, and something we've talked about for a while. And granted, if anybody wants to take their child and do a private school scenario or homeschool or whatever, that's fine. But what starts to happen, and it will deteriorate the public school system, is if those families that are moving, if the only way you can go to a public school setting is 2 things, either or a private school setting or homeschool, is your family had enough money to do so, or you had some type of skill or talent that would earn you a scholarship. Once the families of those students no longer start putting money back into the system, then that not only affects the kid, but it starts to affect the athletic department and the school as a whole for long periods of time.
Let's go to the phone lines. Terry, you're on Sports Blitz.
Hello. Hey.
Hey, how are
I
you,
just
Terry?
wanted to kind of understand the debate here. It's about homeschool.
I think it's also about Christian school environment is the way I read the rule. Am I correct?
Yes, you can. It's either a church school cover law or tutorial law are the two ways that you can be a homeschooled student in Alabama.
So in the state of Alabama, you can compete private and public schools.
If you're a homeschool or a church school, you can make a decision that you would like to compete at the public school if your residency is within the school district's limits.
Okay, I understand. So the school, I teach in Dale County, and our high school played against, was it McIntosh?
Yeah, y'all played for a state championship this year. Had one of Jamarius Henderson, a great running back there this year.
Oh yeah, great running back going to Auburn, yes. And I really think those guys are great up there, but are they at an advantage?
Is Dale County at an advantage?
No, you're the school up there that beat them.
Oh, you're talking about Madison Academy.
Madison, that's it.
I mean, that's up for debate as well. I mean, if you ask a public school guy sitting right here, if a private school that can go out there and recruit and make sure that they fill all the positions and have a good backup at each of the positions by offering scholarships to those kids because of their athletic ability, and you build a team off a large population base like Huntsville and Madison County, then yeah, that's my opinion. Now, there's nothing wrong with that school, but Dale Counties of the world are struggling taking on teams that really are loaded.
But Dale County would never have a chance then, to do that kind of stuff. Because Dale County had their best players come up this year that they've been playing for the last 8 years in the system. And it's going to be another 8 years before we get that talent again, probably.
And that's what
we don't recruit. We don't pull from Dothan. We just have a little small town there in Midland City and Newton and Dale County. We really don't have that much talent. But to play Madison, who can pull from, Huntsville, that's at a big disadvantage. So yeah, I'm kind of like on the end of it's not fair.
I'm more leaning towards you, and we appreciate your phone call out there today. Where are you calling from?
Well, I'm calling from Alex City right now.
Okay, good. Well, we appreciate you tuning in.
I appreciate you taking my call.
Absolutely. Love to hear from you again, 256-234-6221.
But I get it. But what if my kid, starts homeschool from kindergarten up? And so then at that point, it was never his choice.
It was your choice.
What? Oh, so you said I could tell my parents, you know what, I don't want to.
No. It was the parents' choice.
Yeah, but that's not who's participating in the athletics. That's what I'm saying. So you can't. That's where I think that's what everybody's argument that is for it is. If I have a student who went to private school their entire life or was homeschooled their entire life, then why shouldn't they be allowed the same opportunities because it was not their choice to be placed there to begin with?
Look, I'm showing my cards here. My cards are on the table, and
there's more wrong with this than right in my mind.
There's nothing wrong with private. There's nothing wrong with homeschool. Kim had a great phone call, and they made a decision which was for the betterment of the child. I applaud that decision, but they're not in that school system. They chose not. It's not because they got kicked out of that school system without doing anything wrong. They chose not to be in that school system. So, you make decisions based off of all of these elements that you choose from. Whether I want to send my kid, if I live over in Auburn, Opelika, do I want to send them to Lee Scott? Do I send them to Lee Scott? It's no different there. They make a decision they want to send them to Lee Scott, and they're going to be allowed to go play at Auburn and Opelika. You made that decision. I didn't make you make that decision. So I'm missing the boat here.
I think
really
most people who are proponents of the law are going to say that an academic environment and an athletic environment are completely different. So while there are instances where a school's academics might not be that strong, but you look at some schools around in Tri-County area, you look at in the Montgomery area, they may not be that strong academically, but they have great athletes. So then they should be, which means they would have good athletic teams. So, but if I want my child to get a better education than what they're getting at the moment,
You chose them to go to another school.
yeah,
And I applaud that. But you can't have your cake and eat it too.
So then you'd have to just figure out a way to
If
just
they
play,
go to
or
a
you
private
just don't
school, or if
play.
they don't go to a Christian school, there's a lot of great sporting events at both. I mean, you go to some larger cities, some of your top basketball programs here. St. Jude's one. It's over the year. Jermichael Green played at St. Jude in Montgomery. He chose to go to that private school. And it's it's a Christian environment. It's a great school. Faith Academy down in Mobile every year. Pull it up. They seem to make it up to the Final 48, which has turned into the finals now. They don't quite get through once they get there, but they come out of that great Mobile region. There's nothing wrong with that decision to make. But
so is there instance where public school, like I could see this where some public school systems would benefit, because coming up there's going to be some kids that probably are going to struggle to stay academically eligible.
Yeah.
So
there's a loophole, buddy.
That's where I think that's your biggest.
It's a huge
problem that you
loophole.
have is that.
How do you administer that? Put yourself in the shoes of those that are expected to make sure that X kid does not have the grade point average or does not have the classes to move forward and can't play. He's not eligible. You had a kid that dropped out or was close to dropping out and went on ahead and dropped out, and his parents signed off on it because he's good enough to play football and they want him to play athletics. And what's the difference? But you could see that happening. I could. And
I think that's where the most plausible situation is going to take place, is where it's going to be academically ineligible
time to take a
people
break.
That are going to be participating in these sports. But this has been an interesting debate. I hate we didn't this past, I think, May 7th through the House. And so we hadn't had a chance really to get on it with all the guests we've had, but this has been an outstanding show so far.
We'd love to hear from you. 256-234-6221 is our phone number. We're at JR Sports Bar and Grill. Love for you to come out. Make sure to bring your kids out in uniform. They'll eat off the kids menu for $3.99. Also call in, delivery or pickup, 256-329-2328. More of the Sports Blitz, Lake Martin Sports Roundup right after this.
And Grill in Alex City. Order my favorite, the wing basket, or
1.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup. Got about 3 more minutes left here on this program as Scott exits stage left, and he will be joining Luke Robinson for Sports Blitz Live tonight. Scott, y'all got a ton to talk about on Sports Blitz Live. We've had a lot of fun talking about the Tim Tebow rule today. If you've got some thoughts on that, please call in on Sports Blitz Live tonight. You can pick that one up on Charter Channel 80 statewide, Channel 3 here in the local Lake Martin community, 97.5 Kowaliga Country. Couldn't do this without Lake Broadcasting, so I want to thank them. I'm going to give you just a second to, because I know you feel the same as I do, how well Cameron Blankenship's handled himself during all of this UAB. We don't have time to get into it. Hopefully you and Luke will get into it tonight on live, but really impressed with how Cameron's handled himself.
He, along with Justin Kraft, have been 2 of the best ambassadors that you could have had for a situation like this. And although he's no longer attending the school or affiliated with the university, it means he was so adamant about the fact that he was glad that it was coming back. And although he is coming back, it's a little bittersweet for him because especially somebody like him with only 1 year of eligibility left, and it hurt. And that was my biggest problem with this, was not necessarily your freshman or sophomore kids, because they'll have another opportunity to go play. But if you're a junior or senior on this team, or a junior on the team, then you don't have the same opportunities as somebody else. But he handled himself extremely well through all the interview processes, and you can look it up. AL.com, as you said, did a great feature with him, and he was featured a lot on Twitter yesterday. So, again, a great ambassador for the city as well as UAB.
Yeah, the first 2 that were talked to right there. If you wonder why it's important to us, I mean, Justin that you brought up, the very first name there at the top is he headlined, played here at Benjamin Russell, moved on, played at Georgia Tech, then moved back, played at UAB. He spearheads the whole operation. A lot of the accolades to get this thing back really go towards him. And Cameron, if there's been a player that's been interviewed and talked to about more than any other, it's Cameron Blankenship. Also went to school here at Benjamin Russell High School. So great ambassadors for this community on how they've moved on and done that. Back to UAB, the beauty of this, I'm going to kick and say, is for the kids. You got all these opportunities, and we've had a whole bunch of them from right here in this community or close by that have moved on to UAB and had the opportunity of getting their schooling paid for through football. And not only through the kids that get the opportunity, but for the coaches and the jobs there that are created through this. That's where I hated to see it go, and that's where I'm so excited that it's back. And, again, it may be a good time to be late in your career in high school, more opportunities out there in the local community. But I'm excited for the state of Alabama in general, that they have those 85 scholarships back to offer to a lot of them that will end up being in-state kids, and excited that Bill Clark has mentioned that he will be coming back as the head coach there.
This whole thing has just been kind of disheartening to see it happen because to me, I think this was a setup, and I know me and Luke will talk about it, but I think this was the way to ruin the program or kill it without actually killing it. They were going – I think they said they were going to dismiss football as a whole just to create this type of scene and to see what would actually happen if they did do it. And now to make them restart it, you have a whole year now that you won't be able to go out and recruit or do it. Now they can go recruit for the 2016 season, but, I mean, you don't have anybody on the roster. So how are you going to fill 85 spots? And I mean that you'll have your early enrollment periods. That'll be a beneficial thing from you to a certain extent, but there's going to be hard to try to get that many transfers in. You're looking at at least a 3 to 5 year turnaround before you even getting back to where they were before they shut it down.
Love to listen in to y'all. Sports Blitz Live coming up next from 7 to 9. I want to thank JR Sports Bar and Grill for having us each and every Tuesday night from 6 to 7. Also Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. They have us up here as we're part of Sports Call from 4 to 6 every afternoon. So for Scott Hardy, I'm Randy Lee saying thanks for tuning into the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup.
Lunch doesn't have to be the same old fast food or burgers in your busy day. Big Beef Barbecue has a great meal at a great price with a lunch special to prove it.